everybody. Thank you for your patience. So over it did send me the instructions again, and actually the pattern. I only requested the instructions, but that's fine too. So I was able to download everything, and we are back on track. And I'm actually just going to finish the dress and just break up the videos because I was trying to sew along. So if something came up in a step, it's easier for me to address it in the video instead of leaving a lot of responses in the comments below. But that's okay. We're just going to plug along, and I'm just going to keep recording everything instead of breaking it up how I initially thought I would. So we are at the point where we are joining the skirt seams. And so what you see here in the instructions, it tells you to do all the zigzag stitching around. This is the skirt pieces. All of the skirt pieces. This is the back, this is the two pieces for the front, and then you start joining them together. So I'll show you a clip here. In my first dress, Eve dress, I did follow these instructions, but because I am using this rayon challis, which is a excuse me, very much softer handle, I am going to opt to do French seams. And so where I will be starting is here at number 3 with pinning the sides together. And so let me show you where I have started pinning them together, and then I will do the show the French seam on the other side. I'll just show the pinning first, and then I'll show a little bit of the sewing and then the completed portion. Okay, so if you can see, I am starting, because it's a 5/8 inch, you really can't see in there. I can see that I'm starting my stitching line, my first stitching line. These are wrong sides together for the French seam, and I'm going to stitch all the way down to the bottom, and then I'm going to flip it over, iron it. Well, I'll clip the excess first, then I'll flip it over, iron it, and then stitch down the other side and then iron it again. So once I get down to the bottom, like I said, I'm starting here, then I'll show you what it looks like, and then I'll transition to show you after I have clipped it, ironed it, sewn down the other side once I put right sides together, and then I'll show that piece. Okay, so I've sewn down, and now what I'm doing is clipping close to the edge, so once it folds over to the right side, it doesn't have a lot of bulk in there. That's what I've seen when I've watched different people do French seams. And so on YouTube, I watch so many YouTube videos on it. And so that's what I've seen. So that is what I am now doing. So I want to just show you that. That's what I've started doing here. And then what I'm going to do is fold this over right sides together, press it, and then come back and then stitch the inside. So then that part will be on the inside. Okay, as you can tell, this is nice and pressed out. Now the right sides are together, and I am going to stitch down 3/8 there all the way in, and this will be my inside. And so you will do this for both sides, because step 3 and step 4 is attaching the front of the skirts to the back of the skirt. And then be mindful of the left hand side where you would put the regarding the, once we get to the waist piece, I should say, we want to just remember to be mindful of that area, and we'll get to that. So I'm jumping ahead, but one thing I do want to say is make sure that you have laid out your pattern pieces. I will say the mistake that I made is that I had to cut this piece out again, because one side front panel you cut out on the right side of the pattern, and then you flip the pattern over, and then you cut out this second piece. Well, I cut both of my pieces out on the same side, so I had to go back and cut out the recut out the other panel. And then so then it talks about here about sewing about pressing, the seams open. So you can go ahead and do the rest of these steps, and then we will come right. Okay, I may have gotten cut off. I'm not sure. So I'm just going to repeat myself. Sorry if I'm repeating myself. But this is the finished side. Be mindful in step number 4 that it tells you where to begin to start sewing, because you need to leave room for the tie gap. And so, and this is on the right hand side. So if this is the back bodice piece, this is the right front bodice piece with the wrong side facing. What I did was just kind of mark where also the notch was, but I also like to mark it with a marking tool, just so I can see it and be sure on this right hand side is where the French seam started all the way down, instead of at the top. On the left hand side you can start at the top, but on the right hand side you have to start at that first notch and then go all the way down. Okay, we are at the joining the front bodice to the yoke, and again it says here about zigzag stitching along the side seam and along the waist seam, right? We will not be doing that, or I won't. You can, if you are deciding to go ahead and use your overlock or zigzag stitch. For me, I will French seam the side and the bodice when we get to that point, but we are going to go ahead and move on to the gathering. Now at first I was going to do a pleat for the shoulder. Actually I am not. I decided I will leave it as a gather because I like how drapey this is, and I think the gathers, because they're so subtle, to me it was very subtle in my first Eve dress make, so I decided to leave it. And so you need to make your 2 gathering row stitches and make sure the pieces line up. So here's the yoke piece here. My notches are down here, you can't see them. There's one of them, and the other one is right here. You can't really see it, but then you go ahead and make your gathering stitches, right? Your 2 rows, gather it to where the pieces align, and then you're just going to stitch across, and then I am actually going to overlock this piece. So on the shoulders I will use my serger, just because this is my first time doing French seams, and I don't want to mess this fabric up or do anything wrong by not necessarily doing that piece right on the yokes, on the areas of the yoke. So go ahead and get through step 9. I will come back and show you how mine look, and then we will, in the next video, we will move forward with the bodice pieces. And so yeah, up until that point, go ahead and get to at least step number 9, and then in the next video we will move on to, let me just show it to you, joining the bodice seams, which will be the French seams. Okay, I will be back to show you what it looks like after I have done both my shoulder pieces with the yoke. Okay, so I am losing a little bit of light, but I'm glad you can still see this really good. So I have joined the yoke piece to the bodice piece here at the top, and this is just how mine's look, and this is why I decided to go ahead and keep the gathers. I did, like I said, I overlocked, used my serger for at the top, but see, this is how mine look. And so I don't mind that. It's very subtle. If you can tell, that is very subtle. I know my print, while it's large, it is kind of busy, so I'm not sure if you can see that, but yeah, I like it. So we are going to move forward tomorrow with, let me just show you once again, we are going to be joining the bodice seams. Again, I am not serging or zigzagging the edges here. This section I will do French seams for everything for that section. The only part I will use my zigzag stitch for, or rather my serger for, is to join that yoke piece up at the top. So stay tuned for the next video, and we will keep it moving. Thank you everybody for being so patient. See you in the next video.